Hello and welcome in to another episode of Offensively Accurate, hosted by yours truly, Atlas, aka White Boy Deep Voice, aka Last Christian Standing. Um, Here for a Saturday episode, we're going to be a little bit shorter than normal. I hope everybody coming in had a good weekend for the 4th of July. I know mine was a bit, it's a bit odd, but I think a lot of people feel this kind of sentiment as we are celebrating the what it means to be free and the birth of our nation amidst being quite honestly occupied to a heavy degree from multiple foreign influences, as well as being occupied by corporations, as well as being occupied by Democrats at large, the DNC, the establishment, whatever you kind of want to call it. We have some bit to get into. Like I said, we're going to be a little bit shorter. Part of it is because work is just absolutely killing me. I'm over 50 hours right now, and I'm going to be working tomorrow as well. So I'm dying on the inside a little bit. Secondly, too, that's part of the reason why I was late. I tried sneaking in a bit more work, and traffic in Columbus taught me another valuable lesson that I honestly probably already should have known not to try or attempt that, knowing I probably had a good chance of being late. I will say I did get a really, really good message about my family just shortly before going live. So a huge thank you to that, and a huge thank you to the Lord for continuing to provide. And in terms of announcements, I had a company reach out to me for AI caption clips. A specific one of their agents reach out that they said they wanted to make captioned clips for me. I've responded to the first one. I haven't responded to the second one. Just not really sure how I feel about it. They were trying to give me some like super insane like discount, but essentially like kind of like doing shorts for me because they think like I have a really good voice and they think like I'm just like a diamond in the rough, I guess is the way that they kind of put it. So maybe I'll respond to that. The other announcement though that I do have that's actually pertaining to the show, Offensively Accurate, is I'm planning to have an upcoming guest. This upcoming guest, I believe and I'm not going to use his name because I'm unsure if he wants his name to be used in public. So I'll go, it's Knights of Gideon. I believe that's the exact handle for their channel. It's called Knights of Gideon, another Christian channel. Now they focus a bit more purely on the religious side of things. At least that's what I have seen and what I can tell from watching it. I'd like to give a small snippet of it here in a second before we start breaking down to the news to see, just what they're about. Because, one of my thought processes trying to get a bunch of guests on here is to obviously source them around people who I, even, part way agree with, but probably disagree with on something maybe minor. But, kind of we all agree on the big picture type thing. I would like to get somebody in who would be purely oppositional to myself. I actually had somebody in our Discord who was very oppositional to everything I was. And then I noticed the other day when I got the invite link to send to this guy who's going to be coming from Knights of Gideon to come on the show. And I think, he's like a part-time pastor, essentially is what he is. But there's two of them. I'm not really sure if they're both pastors. I'll let them speak for themselves when they get here for that show. I'll watch a snippet too. But the person who was opposition on the Discord is gone. Not there, doesn't exist. He deleted all of his messages and disappeared. So, if I can find someone who can actually, meaningfully go back and forth and not kind of get emotional, I would love to do something like a debate that's oppositional. Obviously, I generally press most of the guests I have on here, period, outside of Wayne, because me and Wayne kind of gel for the most part on everything. So it is what it is, and we'll see where we go from there. So, without further ado, subscribe on YouTube, follow me on X, follow on TikTok, follow on Spotify, share the show if you enjoy it. Definitely send it to those who you would think that they would prefer this over their typical goy slop, their typical conservative ink trash. You probably read the title as well. We're going to get into a bit of that. But first we'll go into the Biden emergency. But before we get into either of the big two ticket items, the two bigger stories, I do have some smaller things I want to run through. Obviously the Knights of Gideon, but before we get to that, let me take it over here. Mr. Beast tweeted earlier today that if we lower the age to run for president, he will jump in the race. Now, obviously, I don't think that there's going to be some kind of government push to, scramble, let's go, lower the age. We can get Beast in there as a Democrat. Maybe, honestly, there's a possibility for that. I still would have my money on a Taylor Swift before I put my money on a Mr. Beast, but just to see that, This exemplifies more honestly what I keep bringing up, which is pop culture became politics or politics became pop culture, one of the two, whichever one you prefer. And this happened during COVID as well. It just shows that the average person since around, 2019, 2020, really 2020 with the COVID pandemic, at least here in America, um, they pay attention to a lot more politics than they normally would have. And who's to say what the general increase was, but it seems like across the board, every single individual, no matter how unpolitically affiliated they used to be, since 2020 happened, they gained some percent increase into caring about what politics is. And obviously, because it was such a traumatizing experience, it was so out of nowhere. Obviously, with the pandemic, it was politics out the woozah. People were just, I mean, what's a word for it? Kind of, shock and awe, terrified, didn't know what to do, kind of just desperate, really, to get answers. And, obviously things are being censored over here, suppressed over here. This person says one thing, this person says another thing. It's all a bunch of screaming and yelling. And the crux of the issue is people were being led to believe that there was some kind of, very, very dangerous virus going along that was going to just harm people's lives, yada, yada. And you can see it even now with the mind virus as well. People still wearing to their face masks to this day, breaking down because somebody tells them like, hey, masks don't really work that well. And they're like, what do you mean? Like, my life is over. And, those kind of like very, very low IQ people. It's unfortunate, I do feel bad. It's not to make fun of them. I mean, you should make fun of them to a degree. Obviously, shame is a utility that we should use to leverage to our advantage to get people to stop doing activities that we deem to be not good or shouldn't continue. But there is a certain level of understanding that comes with that, which is, imagine if you were somebody who didn't have a good political cornerstone or foundation in your family, and you were amidst a lot of these things. It's easy for me to see why a lot of people just kind of clung to the establishment out of fear, out of a lot of different things. But this is a kind of an aside point. Now we're looking at a reality in which Mr. Beast could walk into office. And again, I don't think that the government's going to put the clamps down and make sure that the voting age gets lowered. But I don't put it past the establishment to cheat in ways we've never seen before. They've already installed ballot boxes again in Wisconsin and Michigan, the two places which we know. Obviously, the famous graph, right? There were the red slope, and then you just see the blue line just going straight up and then over. So who knows? I would still put more money on the fact that a Taylor Swift would win. But again, I wouldn't even know what the metrics are with the Mr. Beast, right? Like, I'm familiar with him, obviously, but seeing how he clearly takes the stance of Ava, he's clearly liberal. I hate that I even said that. He takes the stance of Chris on a lot of the transgender stuff, the guy who obviously abandoned his family, rather than, he has another person who's been with him on his crew for a very long time, and his name is Chandler. And I guess here recently, Chandler's actually been reading Bible verses on his own personal TikTok. So it's kind of wild to see the friend group kind of go speaking sideways out of their mouths to each other, essentially. Obviously, not confronting each other or having any kind of conflict, but doing it in their own personal ways to let their own individual fans and audiences know like where they still sit. So it's good that there is some kind of positive influence there. But just to put a point there too, huge viral news. Wasn't expecting that when I saw it on X. I was kind of in a bit of disbelief. And some of the comments here too, even on this, you have Cat Turd, who's a very popular reply guy essentially on X. He's got a good following, pretty big following. I think he's like, where is he at? 2.5 million followers, right? So he's one of the big dogs in this, and so he's saying like, no thanks, obviously. Then you have people like, would you still make YouTube videos if you were president? And it's like, bro, we already have people who get into office who don't do anything. Like, I'm glad this was the right answer, right? Like, this is the good answer. I'd probably focus on running the largest economy on earth. But again, just one of the things I do want to point out, this is one of the most liked tweets I've ever seen in my life, like 361,000. Now, I'm sure Elon Musk has some that definitely rival this, but again, Elon Musk is the one who owns the platform. So like, that's like, obviously, like, of course he would. So maybe there is a chance. Maybe all of a sudden Mr. Beast becomes president. They lower the age in a matter of a few months, and then here we are. But that speaks to what happens to Biden. That's all. That would only happen if Biden was gone, right? Like, and so we're going to get to that with this emergency stuff here. But before we do, I'd like to take over to the Knights of Gideon. I wanted to put a little bit of a spotlight on him, just so people know. And again, this is the guest that we will be having. Let me find his most recent video. It might not be his most recent one. Yeah, it's this one. I watched a snippet of this one. And I just want to give you like a nice a clip of like
About
the vibe I get from them. And so it's a spotlight to them too. So go and follow them definitely if you enjoy this level of content. You enjoy this the religious forward facing content that's allowed to exist on YouTube. And again, like I said, I'm not too familiar with them at all. This was pointed out to me by my father for one. But we're going to connect and we're going to get an episode done in. But I wanted to play just a couple minutes of this too. And before I play this, one of the things that I wanted to say while I was watching this, I got a reaction, before I play it in whole, was these are the kind of guys that I feel the presence of God around. I've been into many Catholic churches before. They have the nice sacraments, the ornaments, the pews are so crystalline gold. Everything's just so nice. All the people are just so overbearingly nice, to be honest. And I never feel the presence of God in those places. But I do feel it around brothers who talk and speak like this. And there's just something to say about the way that the Spirit has fire to it and how other Christians can sniff out that some of those other individuals just simply do not have that fire in them. Now, again, I wanted to play just a small clip of them. This is the very beginning of one of the recent episodes. We're definitely not going to watch the whole 2 hours of this, just the beginning couple minutes, just so you get a vibe of who these guys are. And again, not sure if both will be coming on or if just one. That'll be decided, I guess, here in the coming days. We'll get the more details planned around it.
Praise the Lord, everybody.
praise the Lord.
And forgive me too. If anything's wrong with the sound, it needs adjusted up, down, let me know either way. I'll try to monitor on my end.
Lord, everybody.
So happy to be here with you. We are excited about tonight's message. And we're even more excited what God is doing, what he is doing in the body of Christ right now. He's awakening sleepers.
Yes.
He is stirring up the ones that have been quiet and the ones that have been down and the ones that feel weak. And he's been raising up a new generation.
Hallelujah.
And the Lord that will not accept the altars of Baal, will not accept the demons in their life, and is tired of the mundane, is tired of the complacency.
Yes.
And this whole episode is about stirring up the fire inside of them too. So obviously they're clearly kind of playing on it too. But I'm serious when I mean like that vibe I get from these guys is starkly contrasted to the vibe I get from a normal traditional Catholic. And I can't speak for Orthodox. I've never stepped foot in an Orthodox church. I've never really even been around Orthodox Christians in a kind of community sense. So I can't speak to that. Although a lot of my followers do know that here recently I have been leaning into the Orthodoxy a bit more because I just see a stronger claim to being the right way to do things than I have really seen at any other point in my life, especially with Protestantism and definitely not Catholicism.
Is tired of we say one thing but we don't see results. And if you're one of them people today, this is the message for you.
Yes.
This message is for you. Amen. If God is stirring up in you something new, something exciting, something different is in the air.
Yes.
You smelling something different. You're smelling a sweet Savior.
Come on.
You're feeling a life in you that you haven't felt in years. I want you to know God is doing something new in this land, and he is raising a new people.
And amen to that. And that's really what I wanted to show you to get a vibe of where they're coming from. Now, the one I've been in contact with has been Todd. Seeing how he's using his name on his own YouTube, I guess I'll use his name too, Todd Fearing. Now, that might be an alias because obviously it sounds very similar to God Fearing, which is just pretty cool. And if it's not, if it is his real name, like, man, I mean, what a coincidence, right? But again, I don't believe in coincidences. It's really, really good. Part-time pastors, probably both of them, I would imagine. It seems that both of them can speak very, very well to the Word of God, better than what I can, obviously. Like, I would always like to point out the fact that I'm not a pastor. I'm working towards being better, being more well-spoken in terms of verses and, reading them right off the top of my head and having an idea of what the ideas are. An outsider looking in, theologian, Gen Z, something along those lines. Like I obviously have my own ideas and opinions, but I'm not nearly on the level of what a pastor is, but just a nice snippet to see these guys, hopefully both of them. I would like to have both of them on, but if it's just Todd, no complaints here. We'll have them on. We'll have a good discussion. I'll build out an outline too, and more than likely I'll put out a topic of discussion so people have an idea of where the conversation will be going. So it'll be a bit more directed and oriented towards a specific couple of topics rather than just kind of being all over the place and about, just religion in general. So to move off from that though, one of the things that I did want to talk about, since it was the 4th of July, and we'll do the Biden emergency stuff right after this. There was a big showing of like the doomer mindset on the 4th, and this goes back to what I started saying about the 4th of July at the beginning of this, which was I saw a lot of people posting essentially like, what is there to celebrate, right? Like, why would you celebrate being in a free country when you know you're truly not free? It kind of seems like a joke of a holiday. And I feel that sentiment too. Like, I kind of feel like I spit in the founding fathers' faces to celebrate on knowing that like we're dealing with much more oppression and tyranny than they generally ever would have even thought possible. And I even had a discussion with my family on this too, to certain degrees. I think the sentiment though shouldn't be that you should like not be around your family or have a good time. I think the sentiment should be you should be well aware that how many more 4th of Julys will there be? Is probably a better question in terms of being able to feel that sentiment that you're truly free. But understand what this means, right? 17 to 20-year-olds met in secret in taverns, risking their families and a lot more over way less occupation and way less oppression than what we're experiencing now. But the sentiment is clear that most people would decry any sort of revolutionary or reactionary kind of, at least in the direction of what the founding fathers would have done, which was going a step beyond basic civil disobedience, right? Like blatantly committing crimes by dumping tea in the harbor and doing other things by just outright saying no and not giving into the demands, which would be deemed as straight crime, which I guess is in a degree is civil disobedience. But in today's terms, we really understand civil disobedience to be more along the lines of, okay, like go stand in that spot you're not supposed to, and then the cop just like takes you and moves you out. Like that's, and you're doing anything more really beyond that, people are like, whoa, like you're pushing the line there, man. Like, and so what I can't connect the dots on, forgive me, is how you can herald what the founding fathers did over way less tyranny and praise it and be like, man, everything that they did gave birth to this beautiful nation. And then on the other hand, be aware of what's going on and then stop anyone from doing anything similar to what the founding fathers may have done. It's a logical discontinuity that I really wrestle with. It's one of those things that maybe it's because the times have changed honestly too rapidly. Out of just pure comfort. People are just, so blanketedly terrified of losing what little convenience and comforts that they have. I think that's probably the biggest reason. But I think this speaks more, and we're going to get to it later on after the Biden emergency stuff. It is just the fact that the conservative movement's fake. It literally is just fake and gay. And that's completely literal, right? Like they're not just like I'm not just saying like, wow, you're gay because you're dumb or stupid. It's like, no, like half of them are literally gay, and then they push for LGBTQ plus AI, whatever inclusion. And honestly, if you can't draw the line at men having sex with each other, it's like you can't draw the line anywhere. I don't want you to be drawing lines. I don't want you to be in politics. And I'm somebody who's not, I've moved more to the right. The longer I look at news, the more I have to read what goes on in this world, the more I find myself ever falling further right, because it's just paired with the disappointment of seeing what the conservative pundits and thought leaders are doing right now. And then you look at the negative actions and consequences of what's going on with the left and what they're happy with, what they're pushing. And it's like, dude, it's just fake and gay. We'll get into a bit more of it with more substantial to back that up with materials as well. But again, one of these big points that really, broke it open for my dad. And I know I've talked about my dad a couple of times now, but, him seeing the Blaze and Prager University, congratulate Dave Rubin on purchasing a child through surrogacy, while his partner also did the same. So it's like 2 children, right? And then paying like $3,000 or whatever it was a piece for him. And then seeing like these big conservative outlets come down and be like, oh my gosh, this is so great. Like, we're so proud. It's like, dude, you have lost the plot. Now, I will be honest in the fact that I am deemed an extremist by many people. I'm deemed by clearly an extremist by the left. I'm deemed an extremist by a lot of these soft conservative feminists on the right. I'm deemed by an extremist by people who know me in real life in the community, people who are in my wife's family. Don't care. What I've now understood what I'm here to do is I'm here to push and get up underneath this pendulum and push that MFer as much as I possibly can. Like, if you think that there will be any semblance of returning to anything that you would consider good, there's going to be a lot more radical action needing to be taken place besides congratulating gay pundits. Wow, you bought a baby. It's got to stop. So, rain aside, we'll move on to Biden emergency, right? So Laura Loomer posted this. I guess the first thing that I saw wasn't from Laura Loomer. But what I did see, though, was I saw a report by Leading Report that there was an emergency with Biden. Let me go ahead and pull this over here. This is from Laura Loomer right here. Make sure, make it a little bit bigger. There we go. So it was reported that Biden had a medical emergency on Air Force One yesterday. And for years, the White House has been covering up the fact that Biden has been having neurological and cardiac issues. You know, it's kind of hard to hide the neurological ones. The White House has been lying to everyone. And everyone who attacked my reporting yesterday is about to eat crow. So I'll stop right there. So there was an initial report that there was an emergency that happened and press access was revoked. And about 30 minutes later, they denied all these reports, said it never happened, and that Biden had already landed, I believe it was in Wilmington or Delaware, and that everything was all good. But then I see almost an hour or two after that people were reporting back saying that no, the White House is lying. There was a medical emergency. And this is what Laura Loomer had to say. Biden had a medical emergency on Air Force One. This is why the press pool had their access revoked last minute yesterday. I stand by my reporting. More will come out too. Massive cover-up by Biden HQ, who called my report 100% false. The only thing that is 100% false is the claim by Biden's staff that he is doing fine. Now, what she quoted here was another piece that I was like, this is kind of odd. It says exclusive. A cardiologist met with Biden and his physician at the White House for 7 hours until midnight. At the same time, a Parkinson's disease specialist was at the White House. So Biden had a 7-hour visit until midnight with some doctor named John Atwood, who's a cardiologist, at the White House on January, so earlier this year at 2024. At the same time, Biden and his physician, Kevin O'Connor, were meeting with Kevin Kennard. I'm not sure if these names are even relevant, to be honest, who were Parkinson's disease specialists at the White House. So it's saying that this Parkinson's disease specialist met with Biden's, family physician or his personal physician, who's Kevin O'Connor, on the same day that appointment was made, which is the 7-hour medical appointment. The appointment was made 5 days before their meeting, and the White House log showed the meeting was nearly 7 hours and didn't end until midnight. Now, I will say the 7 hours aspect is kind of wild. Test failed. The 7 straight hours of any kind of doctor visit seems kind of insane. I think most people understand that most of your doctor visits really essentially just waiting in the lobby. And then the visit's really kind of like 20 minutes, if that. I mean, obviously outside of like emergencies and things like that, most doctor visits and appointments generally only last that long because you generally have an idea of what you're getting this appointment for. So we'll say that it's kind of odd. But she continues in saying that the meeting, according to the White House log below, was cardiologist John E. Atwood. Why did Joe Biden need to meet with a cardiologist and Parkinson's disease specialist at the White House for 7 hours? And she's saying, isn't it past his bedtime? Now, what she has here, too, is she points out that this is the actual documents showing clearly a 7-hour appointment there, nearly until midnight. 7 hours, 4 minutes. They met at what, like 5? Imagine being at a doctor from 5 p.m. until midnight, dude. I'd just be like, I'd rather die. I'd rather die. And so, yeah, so Sock, you're saying, was he actually having issues yesterday? I thought that was a rumor. So I saw the initial reports. I was on my phone and I saw the initial report. So I'll go back to original one here. I saw the initial reports. It was reported by Leading Report and a few other like lesser known people. But Leading Report was one of the big ones. Rawls Alerts never touched it. I then saw right afterwards that they were immediately coming out. People were saying, no, this is fake. Actually, he's right here in Wilmington. Here's the video. But then what people couldn't do was people were like, this could have been old video. Like, how are we supposed to know? He's using the long stairs, right? Like he hasn't used the long stairs in some time. People were pointing out these things. And then I did see a video though that I pointed out to the fact he used the long stairs earlier in that day. And if you're not understanding what I'm saying, when he boards the plane, you know how he was doing like these big, like long stair get ups to get into the plane? And he kept falling down and it kept making these huge moments and they were going viral. They did away with that and they did like some kind of like smaller little step thing that had a better like handrail. But I guess they went back to that, which is what led people to think it was an old video. Regardless though, that was disproven and I saw that. What Laura is saying is that she thinks the Loomer is fake. And the initial thing that Laura had posted and a few others corroborated that they believe alongside what she's saying is that there's a split between the staffers and that some staffers are wanting to push the issue out and being like, no, he did have an emergency, while the other portion of these staffers are at any cost willing to do whatever. So you have a group of these staffers being like, we don't want to push this man into a casket, knowingly, and then another group of these staffers essentially being like, we will do whatever it takes. We don't care. So Laura is saying the main thing of what's leading her to believe this is that the press pool definitely had their access revoked. And there was a couple people who had their press minute at the last minute being revoked. So that's the biggest piece of evidence that's leading her to believe that there is indeed some kind of emergency that happened yesterday. Now, am I going to be the first person to believe Laura Loomer at her word? No, but I think she does really good reporting for Trump's kind of stuff. With so many people that I honestly trust a bit more than I do Laura, agreeing with the fact that there wasn't an emergency and it was just a fake story leads me to be in this position where I'm like, I don't really truly honestly know. I think the bigger thing about this is if the fact that she found this thing with the Parkinson stuff. I think we all know that Biden's not going to make it till, he's not going to make it through another presidency. That's clearly out of the question. But it's like, at this point, how much longer is he really truly have? So even if there wasn't a medical emergency that was like, that was like a slightly alarming or like, at last minute, I think we clearly, we're waiting for one to happen. I think we're just at that point where at any point we could get the news right now from Newsweek. I could have or New York Times pop up on my phone and it'd be like, but your President Joe Biden passed away from a heart attack or something along those lines. And even one of the initial reports I grabbed and said, you can only give a man so much Adderall, because I saw one of the initial ones that came out. Another portion of me is thinking maybe they're priming people to pull the plug on him and maybe just like stop just dumping all these drugs and time into, all the prep time. Because, a couple of these, articles that came out talking about how all these staffers have to put in just, exceptional amount of work just to make sure this guy is like okay and good to go. What's up, world? 7 free minutes. Got to do some work till this evening. I'd love to see you, brother. Love to see you. We still have to get this weekly collab going. I know I haven't been, I've not sent you a message since we talked about that last, but in the coming months, in the coming weeks, honestly, we should get that going again. I need to get that plug-in kind of like tied up a bit better too. And so now you have a war, right? So now you have people who are on one side saying this is 100% false, and you have another side saying this is definitely like the White House is lying to you. I'll be honest, I think the White House, I'm not going to believe the White House reports over Laura Loomer, even though I don't find Laura to be like the most, she's not like this 100% clean, credible source like I would find someone to be like a Benny Johnson, So that's where I'm at, right? Like, who do you believe? The White House or Laura Loomer? Okay, well, if push comes to shove, dude, like, okay, like I'm probably going to believe what Laura's saying over what the White House says. And that's just me. And that's really all we have to run off of. This has been one of like the lesser reported things. Like obviously there's a bunch of things that's like been coming out about it, but I'm not really seeing much substantial stuff. And so one of the things that I think really kind of points evidence to the fact that there wasn't a medical emergency is the fact that if it was, and that was a fake video, I would have imagined at this point in time, somebody would have been able to match the video of him landing, to like a video that happened 4 years ago and then being like, hey, see, they're just using old footage. Like what's happening to Biden? But seeing how that's not happened, I'm inclined to think that like, even if there was an emergency, it wasn't even that bad. Or it was maybe just a scare. Maybe he fell asleep and they were like, dude, we can't wake him up. It could have been something even along those lines. So there could be truth on both ends, right? Like it was an emergency, but it was like a panic emergency and it really wasn't an emergency. Anything along those lines could go. And I think their quickness to revoke the press access is on the basis of they are also aware of the fact that he could go at any moment. So they're probably like immediately, any emergency, it's an automatic, like all press have to leave because the president has a good chance of being dead. And I say that, not as a wish, but like this is the reality, right? Like he is at the end of his rope. And you combine that with the fact that he's being pumped with who knows what, how many chemicals. I would imagine the moment he comes off that cocktail of drugs, like he's going to pop, dude. All those things that have been supporting him, all the people who have been around him, like prepping him, getting him for day. And then when it's just him and Jill and Hunter, he's going to sunset. It's next to talk like, things like this, but it's just the reality of the situation. And we wouldn't be having to talk about this if Democrats weren't so desperate in forcing, literal corpses, half bodies into the White House. Just an unfortunate thing. And then to go off of this, I think this is another tweet from Laura Loomer about the same subject. Yeah, so it was just a Parkinson's report, and this is even being posted by other, obviously, media outlets are also posting at this point too, that there was a confirmed Parkinson's disease specialist visiting the White House. You really only have this happening if you think someone's got Parkinson's or has a chance to develop Parkinson's. All of these things are pointing to the fact that you can't have Biden in the White House. No matter what your politics are, it doesn't even have to be political at this point. It's like, this guy is on the verge of death. You can't. You just simply can't. And Sock saying they're going to stop giving him the baby blood. And that's what I'm saying. And it's going to suck. I mean, like, I would imagine like the moment that they pull off of Biden, it's like, I don't think he's going to make it to the end of the year. And maybe he does because he's got all the money in the world from 10% from the big guy. You can keep getting these kickbacks and pay for good medical and health insurance, especially as a former president and executive. But I don't see it lasting very long. And if not, it could be one of those kind of Bruce Willis things where like he doesn't pass away, but he can't even speak. He's like, he's nonverbal. He's like waving and nodding and making sounds with his hands because like his brain is just getting that degenerative with the developments of what's going on neurologically. And if it is Parkinson's compared, it's probably a lot of things going on. He's an old man. So that's reality though. But then again, do you, in all honesty, do you need the report of a medical emergency to have the understanding that like there's a high chance of there being one? No. And I think just seeing that the way that the reaction came out with this, slight report that was, didn't even have much really information outside of the fact that an emergency occurred, I think just kind of shows and paints the picture of how most people are feeling about this, which is, of course he did. Like, duh. But to move on from this, right, I wanted to put that out there because I think there's enough going on to be like, hey, reasonable doubt, right? There's enough here that there's a reasonable doubt that I'm not believing the White House. I'm also not believing what Laura's saying right off the rip too. But clearly her being such a Trumper, she's going to push with as little evidence as she may possibly have to be like, no, this definitely happened because she clearly wants Trump to be in. She is a MAGA person. She's a Trumpy. I think there's a better word for that. A Trumpy. Did I just make that up? I think I'm forgetting a word that describes Trump people outside of like MAGA and Trumper. I'm thinking of Never Trumper, I think, but that's obviously not what Laura Loomer is. Forgive me. Though to make it and go to the second ticket item, because again, I apologize. I only have about another 30 minutes before I can go. So World, you might be only being here for a little bit, but but I only have a little bit as well myself because I'm just so exhausted. I might honestly pass out on stream. So if that happens, just make fun of me. And then Saka's saying, I forgot about the issues Bruce Willis is having. Now you're really sad. So I even saw an update, I believe from his daughter. It might have been from his granddaughter as well. Bruce Willis has moved completely to nonverbal, to the point where he can't even read anymore. So he's experiencing some drastic neurological degeneration. And so I do feel bad for him as well, because, as bad as someone may have been, it's hard to feel bad. I'm not even that familiar with Bruce Willis, and I'm just saying, speaking for Biden as well. But you see people in those situations, no matter what's happened to them or what they might have done, you just feel bad because it's like there's so little, they could actually really have done, to prevent this. And now you're just kind of, it's a timer. You're just watching and you're kind of helpless to what's happening to them. A trumpet. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. But I was like, I didn't want to sound like an idiot. I didn't say it. It's probably because I'm so exhausted, dude. That's probably the reason why I can't think straight right now. Maybe I need to turn my brightness down too on my laptop. Maybe it's killing brain cells faster than what Biden's are. I want to move this towards the more Cuckservatives, because I got this rant from Nick Fuentes that this lady quote tweeted and said, she felt this in her soul. Sleep stream 2024. Well, it's funny you say that, because I see a lot of popular streamers doing sleep streams with like not hundreds of thousands of people, but like a lot of people watching it. And I'm like, like, I don't understand that. I guess it's like something, but maybe I'm just too old to understand like why people find that enjoyable, But to move on to this clip, because this clip goes hard in the paint against conservatives, and it's where I'm at as well. Let me see, where did I mark this at? Oh yeah, right here. I literally titled this, "She felt this in her soul, so did I." And that's a clip here on X. It's somebody who's not a groiper, but has been making a lot of Fuentes clips go viral here recently. Probably because she doesn't have groiper attached to her name, so she's not getting the automatic ATS being like, "You're banned." But this is where I'm at, man. And I think he hits a nail on the head. I'm gonna probably let him speak, but I won't even clip it. Stop it. Again, if anything's wrong with the sound, too high, too low, please let me know. I'll change it as fast as I possibly can.
I'm a conservative. Do the conservative influencer thing. These people are scum. These people are all retards. Okay, they're all idiots. They know nothing. They're all fake as fuck. Like, they're all degenerates, not actually conservative, have no ideas. And then they have these fake followings putting out BS boilerplate party talking points. They get paid by fake groups like this. Here's $100 to tweet, "Vote GOP. Go and register a Republican voter." Fuck you, dude. To your person's got like 3,000 Instagram followers. "Go vote Republican. Drink freedom water. Go to Turning Point." Fuck you. I'd rather be a liberal. I'd rather be a Democrat than be with this trash. I mean, at least the Democrats are authentic. At least Democrats.
Listen, I'm serious when I mean, like, I feel this in my soul, dude. Like, I'm so over just like this, just the moderate, dude. The pretending to be conservative, the libertarianism, the crisis conservatism, the unwillingness to do what needs to be done to rightfully move the country in a better direction than where we are currently. I mean, dude, like, call me a groiper if you want, dude. Like, if this makes me a groiper, I don't even care, dude. This is the direction things got to move, and I'm glad, and I'm on the side now, right? Like, I feel that I've moved to the right of almost every conservative influencer I've ever grown up following or enjoying or listening to in my lifetime. And I never saw it happening this way either. But the more that I kept seeing the same things that he's talking about, the more I realized, like, I was clearly given this voice, right, for a reason. I was clearly put in these positions, given the intellect, given the follow that I had for some reasons, right? And maybe these reasons were to specifically be to punch to the right, dude, or be on the right and start punching left as hard as I possibly can. But I'll continue.
Democrats will like light themselves on fire for what they believe in. I don't support suicide. I don't support the left. But at least left-wing people, as cringe as they are, as misguided and degenerate and sick they are, at least they're fucking real. Like they do, like they believe in all the wrong things, but they actually believe in it and they live it. They're hedonists. They live it. They believe in it. They are. And
I know. I agree with what you're saying, which Ikasaka is saying, you need to be empowered to make changes 100%. And this speaks to the fact that it has to be slow. And, and this is something I've come to terms with as well, right? Like it could possibly not even be in my lifetime. And actually probably won't be in my lifetime. I'd actually I'd be surprised if it was, if anything were to move in any radical direction in my lifetime. It'll be slow. We have to chip away at it, little piece by little piece. And I think that that's happening. Maybe it's only happening in the online discourse, but I think that's meaningful because I think at a certain point, the online discourse will overtake the mainstream discourse. I think that's the trajectory on, at least seeing how X operates for the most part. I think X is kind of dominating right now when it comes to being a news social media platform as well. But I think maybe I will never, I will never see power in my life, right? I don't never see any kind of meaningful political power whatsoever. But I think the point stands that the points of the people like the Bandmans, like the Nick Fuenteses, the Keith Woods, you can even include people like Owen Benjamin in there. Their purpose is to essentially be banned. Their purpose is to be the outlier who's like, no. We have to break the status quo. It's not this. We have to be going out here. And then little by little, and you've even seen it with his recent reinstatement back onto Twitter and X, that it may be a long period of time while people may deem you as being a radical and having these insane ideas. But as time moves, those ideas clearly come to the forefront, and as we're seeing them right now. So I think it more matters the fact that you are always standing up for what you believe in. You are always pushing and not compromising on your values, especially when it comes to Christianity. But let it continue. We're not even halfway through.
And they fight for their trans rights. They fight for whatever. When Palestine's getting blown up and they're deeply moved by it, they go and burn themselves alive. And they quit their job and they boycott and they give a shit. And they go out and they put on the t-shirt. These conservatives, they don't believe this stuff. They get their talking points. They're all degenerates. They're all fakers. They're all sucking somebody's dick. When I say that, I don't say that to be vulgar. I mean, that's what it is. Literally. It's all like gay pederasty going on. And it's literally, that's what's up. It's like all these people, like, they don't believe in it. They don't care. They're not even really conservative. They're just as degenerate as the left. They're just as liberal as the left. But they're uglier and they're dumber. And so that's why they're on the Republican side. And
see, I'm to the left of Fuentes because, like, as much as I may agree wholeheartedly with the sentiments that he puts out, I still at least do some effort to have, like, decorum and be civil. Like, I'm not trying to make everyone an enemy. With him, you got to understand, like, he's been banned and nuked. He doesn't care anymore, right? Like, he tried to play nice. Like, what's the point of playing nice at this point? So I understand that most people are like, whoa, like he just keeps insulting people left and right. But the reality is, dude, he's right. Dude, half of my friends who claim to be conservative sit there and abandon me. Like, hey man, we need to start talking like this and holding these values. They go, oh yeah, okay. 2 weeks later, the dude's just sitting on the couch. Oh yeah. Oh, we were serious about that? Oh yeah, I agree, but like, I don't want to make anybody mad. And it's like, he's 100% right, dude. Some random dude for Free Palestine set himself on fire. Like, people on the left, as degenerate and as gross and as just broken as their ideology may be, as evil as it may be, they believe it. They do actions to show that they believe it. They do more than just speak word of mouth. And that's what I mean, tie this back to the whole July 4th thing, when I'm sitting here going, it's all of these conservatives who are the first ones to go, well, like, we can't actually, like, we couldn't have a revolution, dude. And it's like, but you're celebrating the 4th of July when they revolted for a 2% tax on a foreign good. They literally dumped tea into a harbor. I mean, they did a few other illegal things after that, right? They clearly they did like the civil disobedience, right? By being like, we're not paying for this, we're not doing these things anymore. And then you have knowingly the Epstein stuff going on for the love of the Lord, dude. It's a known thing that we have many multiple politicians. You combine that, you have Nancy Pelosi who's doing insider stock trading. You know, we can go down this list, right? Whoa, dude, you could never have a revolution here, man. Like, okay, dude. Well, then what's the point, man? Am I supposed to be okay watching men march themselves to death while they go into marriage while every single woman on this planet is some kind of dysgenic feminist? No, I can't. I physically can't. I can't. I'm not well with myself watching this stuff go on. It's the reason why I have the channel. So the point becomes, well, if you're unwilling to do the things that are necessary, and there's not enough to do the things that are necessary, maybe this is some kind of purgatory. Maybe we are in some form of it's not hell, but it's like, it's close. You know, like it's not, it's like purgatory. Because if I was to imagine a hell, it would be put me in an existence in where I could never have any meaningful impact and things only ever bent the opposite direction in which I wish they would go. And I'm not trying to black pill people, but it's just all these things kind of came together around the 4th of July. And I'm not sitting here being like, we need to go march in the streets, dude, and do all of this. But even when it comes to doing like basic ballot harvesting kind of stuff, you can't even get your average Republican to get up off of his chair. Maybe this was always meant to happen. Maybe this is supposed to happen. And there's a specific tweet I want to show you from some random account, dude. But it had a bunch of likes on it, and I had to bookmark it too because I'm like, this dude essentially said exactly how I think if these things continue. But I'll let Nick finish.
And they're getting paid to post a slop for Israel. You know, Israel puts up the boatload of money, and it filters down through these BS groups. And then they're paying some, ugly kid with 1,000 Instagram followers to say, hey, man, like the GOP freedom and we're against socialism. And they don't care. They don't know anything. So, like,
You're saying the left will literally burn everything down over the death of some drug addict. Right. Yeah, with the George Floyd stuff. Yeah. Like, oh my gosh. Summer of Love, dude. But isn't that a point, right? And isn't that the point that you even have like the moderate milquetoast fence sitters like Tim Pool also bringing these exact things up by saying like, hey, like your average Republican won't do a thing. Like, of course they won't. That's the position he's come to accept because it's so common. And this isn't even just like, and then that's the grassroots portion of it. Now think of even like the fact of like all these powerful AGs and all these different red states who chose not to prosecute criminals in their states when they have all the resources to do so. You take that even up a notch. Where are the AGs to prosecute the Biden when all these things are coming out, especially with the Biden laptop scandal, the Burisma stuff? Nowhere to be found because they just don't. Maybe it's just like because the only reason that I can think is that they really don't believe what they actually are there for. And they're Democrats in disguise, or maybe they just wanted money. They wanted power. They wanted status. They thought the job would be cool. They just wanted the title. Like, I don't know, but it's not conservative. It's political. It's just it's not conservative, and they don't believe it. And it's it's fake and gay, for lack of better words.
Just start like my contempt of the right wing grows daily. And I'm not like I said, I'm not a leftist. I'm not a Democrat. I'll never be a leftist. I'm Catholic. I'm a reactionary. I want a king. I want to, you hear the way I talk. I'm like Catholic, fascist, reactionary.
Yeah. And I'm like just Protestant reactionary. Maybe fascist to some people, depending on how people view Christianity, ethics being installed back in. I don't think I could ever willingly say I want a monarchy though, like he does.
But at least the left is real. It's authentic. The right is all fake. That's what I've realized. The entire right wing, like what the left says about it is true. It's a lot of criminals. It's a lot of fakers. It is all backed by corporations. So much of it just is fake. It's just a big grift. It's a big scam. And you go to these things and you realize that's what it is. It's a big scam. And I feel bad for the people involved because a lot of them some of the people get involved earnestly.
Facts.
And some of them that believe in America are duped into supporting it and giving endless contributions to this thing. But it's a scam.
So, I mean, I listened to that last night and I'm like, this is hitting my soul. And you know, and let this be a warning to everybody who's viewing me. Why is it Nick Fuentes is more of a breath of fresh air when it comes to politics than nearly any person I follow? Maybe it's more indicative of how I'm feeling and where I'm moving, or maybe it's more indicative of the right wing, but I echo that sentiment entirely. My contempt for the right wing grows daily. Con Inc. is just, I don't even know what it is, dude. And you know, in this revolution came not just now or an epiphany. This has been something I've clearly been talking about for a while. Just it obviously continues to grow. But you know, again, going back to my father, somebody who followed, you know, Glenn Beck for a long period of time, and then to now see a lot of these recent kind of statements, and you know, in being a Mormon, and just seeing, like, you know, because Glenn Beck is who owns Blaze TV, and then just seeing that kind of virtue signaling, the liberal virtue signaling for like surrogacy and LGBTQ and all these ideas that are inherently not conservative. Even he was like, things are so much worse than I thought. And then it made me realize, like, there is such a still big gap between your average, like, and not to call my dad a normie, there's a gap between what's happening with those who are active in the online discourse and those who aren't. Now, not to say they're inactive, but those who, I guess, don't partake in the online discourse nearly as much as I do, or what I would imagine most of my followers do. And how do you bridge this gap, right? Well, obviously you can get on X, right? But I think that, again, it goes back to this like technological thing, and it goes back to how the fact that culture is just a slow moving river. Essentially, it's just a flow. And so there's very little you can do to make the flow go faster. It's essentially, the most that you can do is essentially wait for the stream to reach the other side. And I think that's what I'm seeing, right? You can see the online discourse on X clearly taking a different approach. It's becoming a lot more right wing. You have a lot of people, even in the media at large, and the bigger pundits in cable television, saying like the X is a right wing speech platform. But it's like, no, you know, I mean, there's a lot of, you know, Bible verses that are just blatantly banned. You can't even, I mean, dude, Nick just said Jews and his post was limited, right? You have people who are calling for censorship on that platform all the time still. There's a lot of things that don't make it purely right wing. But to see like a revolution that my dad had, for someone who I pen to be, you know, as equally tuned into politics as much as maybe not as much now, then have the revelation, you know, way later than I had, I think just shows that the online discourse is much, much faster. It's just a different animal than what the mainstream discourse used to be. And I think people have gotten this comfort fact of like, what's that term? The nothing ever happens bros. Like, people have grown so used to this normalcy bias that like any idea of any kind of meaningful radical change is just like, that's not possible. Like, how that's not going to happen, dude. You know that's not going to happen. Nothing ever happens here. And I think we're moving away from that, right? Like, I think that not that we're getting people to stop having the bias, but I think we're moving into territory where it's going to be dangerous to have a normalcy bias. It's going to be very dangerous for you to expect that for the rest of your life, or for the rest of, you know, the next 10 years, like nothing's ever going to happen. It's like, dude, there's a real possibility that things, you know, the lights just go out. And because as they always say, right, it's gradually, then suddenly. And that's the way these things happen. So to move off of this Nick clip, though, and staying in the field of Cuckservatives, we were gaining traction on banning porn, but since I'm winding down, only have a few more minutes left here, I wanted to go here, and I'll try to hit these as fast as I possibly can. So this is from Jeff Younger. Let me pull this up. I'm going to go back to the primary scene. We have Jeff Younger, and he's quoting this tweet, but what is this tweet? He says, this is from Brotherhood. I don't know who this account is. 3,000 followers, white Christian conservative. Don't give that bothers you. It's actually good bio. Says this is one of the rare red pills. Societies like Japan and South Korea have thrown countless millions at women trying to make them reproduce more. Nothing works because female nature is inherently anti-civilization. Women don't natively pair assortively. They all chase Chad or no one at all. And so what this is, so Andrew Torba, the owner or creator of Gab, AI, Gab, period, has this little chart here. And what you can see is legal equality for women in Japan happened at this point in time, which I believe was 1947 or 1948, one of the two. And what is that? Fertility rates immediately gone. And so it's sitting at that peak point, sitting around 4.5. So it's sitting below 1.5 now. So obviously like a 200% decline, or I'm not the best with numbers, but a huge decline, obviously. And for what seemingly was so, I guess, consistent, or at least above 3.5, to see that it happened over this 50-year period to drop below this and then maintain it in what seems to be continually dropping and declining, not a good sign. But to go back to what Jeff Younger said about this, because I'm in agreement with what Brotherhood is saying here, Jeff Younger also says, analysis true. Female hypergamy is dysgenic, anti-civilization, and ubiquitous. Now to go to what I said with that bookmarked tweet I had, which is the sentiment I've always felt, now seeing it being carried by some of these Anons. So there was this other tweet that went viral about how there's a tier of dating where men are awesome in all these ways. And she went on to say, like, she's never seen so many men like being, these, like, she called these women succubuses, essentially. Like, these women just take everything from these men. She was like, I used to always think like these ideas weren't real, but like to see some of these men who like are really good friends with me now that I'm older, now seeing like the way that these women treat them and kind of just are parasitical to them, she was kind of mind blown. So her tweet went viral, but this is one of the responses to it. He says, I respect and appreciate your empathy, but I really don't think that there's a realistic solution due to the fact that we are wired as a species to not care about the collective concerns of men. Sure, individual people can care about individual men, but in aggregate, the health and wellness of the abstract concept called men doesn't even register. The statement men are disposable, women are perishable will always be true, even when it is counterproductive to our culture and society. There are two ways out of this. Either women wake the hell up and embrace their duty to oversee and teach young women how to not be dysgenic sociopaths. Impossible. Or men just entirely disengage. Let the world burn and have circumstances mandate that the pendulum be swung back. Just so there are no atheists in a foxhole, there are no feminist strikes in an apocalypse. I think it meant shrinks. Unfortunately, I find this to be a lot truer than I wish it was. And I think that he's correct in the fact that I think the latter is what's going to be happening. And in fact, I don't even have to predict it. I think you can just look across the board and you see the mass disparticipation from men at large and just the way that men are treated entirely. That's where we're going. And he says impossible too. You can't even disprove that, right? Like how many of these like stupid like alpha male camps do you see all the time? Like, and some of them aren't even from the Christian ethic framework, but some of them are just like in these kind of weird, cringy things. But at least it's like there's nonstop resources and content available to men everywhere. That's like, be better, dude. Like, be better. Come join us. Like, we'll do this. We'll go lift. And some of them might not even include a Bible, but at least they're pragmatic steps to being like, this is how you can improve your life as a man. I don't see that at all for women. At all. When is the last like women's camp you saw where it was like, okay, women, and like now we're gonna teach you, like, this is like, we're not gonna watch degenerate shows nonstop. We're not gonna sit and venerate Taylor Swift. We're gonna be personable. We're gonna hold each other accountable. We're gonna call each other out when we're not being modest. Doesn't even exist, man. Not even in the slightest form. Now, I'm not saying this absolutely, because I'm sure that there are small little counterparts and small little counterculture groups that are like in the Christian framework of women that are doing their most to build a small network of girls who are doing exactly what I just said. But it's not at large, and it's not nearly a big enough sentiment to change the shape and direction or the course that we're currently on. And so the latter is going to happen. And it's just going to be a continual downward spiral. I believe even right now, I think one of the numbers I saw, and I could be wrong on this, I'm retarded and autistic, but I could be wrong on this. I believe one of the numbers I saw was now it's like over 70% of men at the age of 21 are virgins now. And that's just like, and I think there's an age range there. But we're almost matching the 1-to-1 ratio where it's like women only date the top 20% of men. And to get the figure that like, well, 70% of men were virgins at the age of 21, according to this data, is like, dude, we're so close to like that literally being true. And like there being the majority of average men, no matter what they may do or possess, will just have zero sexual access. And I'm not sure if you understand how the Middle East is structured, but if you want a Middle East here in the United States, this is the trajectory we should keep continuing. If you want to understand how it's easy for some men in different countries to literally put a literal bomb on their chest and blow themselves up, what you first need to do is understand that they literally probably had zero sexual access, zero ability to have any upward mobility financially. So what else do they have? I mean, sure, they have their religion and they have their sentimental values, like, well, at least it was a good day today, right? I think for a lot of men that's a very, very hard ask, to just be like, okay, being celibate and understanding like, yeah. And all these women to just do these things and then know that. It just sucks because we're in a dangerous period where I feel that this trajectory that we're on could end up being extraordinarily violent. And I say that not because it's like, well, like, this is the way we're on. I'm saying that as like, as a father who has a daughter on the way, being like, can I please get some brothers in arms to please like help this slow down? Or please not keep us on this trajectory, man, because like this is not the life I want for my daughter. So maybe nothing will change. Maybe this will be the way it continues. And to top everything off, this is you just end it with: never e-girls. Never e-girls. Not even once. Hashtag not even once. This Hawktua girl, and if you're not familiar, her name is literally Hawktua, right? I'm sure everybody at this point knows. You got a Hawktua on that thing and spit on it, ha 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 ha. And every conservative pundit came out of the woodwork and they said, "Oh my God, I love her. Can we put her on the face of conservative media? Can we push? Can she sell beer? How quickly can we get her on a calendar? How quickly can she strip for the conservatives?" It's happening again. She has she's filming a documentary for what? This girl went viral and she's like a conservative girl. Like, all these girls are like, who would you rather have, a blue-haired liberal or Hawktua? And all the conservative MAGA people go, yeah, we'd have Hawktua. And it's like, dude, you degenerative, you heathens. And then now she has a documentary about what? What could be substantive in this documentary? Is any correlation to the fact that she went viral for talking about how she provides or performs giving fellatio? We'll keep it family friendly. Dude, this is what Nick Fuentes was talking about, dude. This is the stuff that makes me angry, man. Couldn't be me, dude. Couldn't be me, man. I even had a Daily Wire pundit, dude. No soup for nulls. I don't know how many of you know this. I was in contact for one of them to be on a discussion on a space. I got blackballed because of one of my statements because I went at Matt Walsh or something. I've never gotten a word from any Daily Wire person ever again. But you know what? We're gonna get Hawktua e-girls and ultra-right MAGA beer. That will be the conservative pundit. That's what will get the praise. I'm not mad or anything, dude. I wouldn't want to work for the Israeli Wire, period. But it just goes to show there's some kind of it's the same thing. It's the same cycle. That's what I mean. It's like I'm in purgatory. I'm like, I'm not in hell, but it's like this has to be one of the rings of it. It's the same thing. It's just always repeating. It's the same bad behavior. It's the same just Christless conservatism that somehow gets pulled. Oh, you're the face of conservative now, and then all of these normie MAGA and the typical less evangelical conservatives go, oh my God, yes, dude, we love this. I love it. It's like, bro, you're a liberal. You just don't like gay people. That's it. You don't really have a conservative position. You just don't like what the progressives are doing. I say this because it's reaching into bounds that aren't even with women. And so I'll leave the women discourse alone. I'm going to go a little bit further just because I wanted to make a point of this too, because I agree 100% with 9mm SMG on this point right here, which I don't know if you saw this video. I'm not playing the video. The video just is gross and made me very sad. Hunting is important, he says. Culling wild boars is absolutely necessary. Taking the time to do this with a captured animal for kicks is sickening, and you should go to prison forever. If you did not see this video, he took a screenshot of it. You can see it out there right here, this little boar. So you know how in certain states they have a wild boar problem. There's been all these crazy videos around where there's like, they have tracer rounds. They're going out at night with night vision, and there's just like a bunch of them going out. They're just putting them down, right? Understandable, dude. Especially when they're in the big herds. You're not going to go out there on foot with a couple boys and guns and expect like one of you ain't going to get hurt. Because they're boars, dude. They're fast, they're quick, and they're powerful, dude. And most humans can't even run a half mile without vomiting. But you know what they did with this one? They captured this boar, kept it for the 4th of July, strapped it with probably, I would imagine it's probably thermite or some other kind of, medium level explosive like that you can purchase. But let it out of its cage, let it run for a little bit, and shot it and blew it to pieces. This is the kind of Christless conservative I'm talking about. Your average conservative will go, man, explosions, bang, bang, isn't that good? And then your average Christian goes, why would they do that to God's creation? I'll leave it there, guys. I appreciate it very much. I hope everybody has a good rest of the weekend. Thank you for everybody who was in here. I appreciate you greatly. Christ is King. Expect to see me here on Monday at 6 p.m. Once again, I will not be late on Monday. Well, I don't want to promise anything. I will do my best to not be late. And again, Sock, love you, bro. You're always in here commenting and giving me engagement all the time. Have a good rest of the weekend. Make sure you go to church. And make sure you're praying for yourself and your family. And make sure you guys are, at most, worried about the things that matter most, which is in your small family unit. Make sure you're caring about your family. Make sure you're caring about your loved ones. As much as I may rattle on the fact that you need to be vigilant and forward-facing to all these political ideas, don't lose the diamond by chasing the sapphire. Don't lose the diamond for chasing after these other things. Make sure you keep all of your ducks in a row. And especially keep your finances in charge too, especially when things are going to start hitting the fan like they are seemingly about to. You're going to want to make sure that all your relationships are in store and that you are good with the Lord. Don't want to be second guessing in an apocalypse when you can't find a Bible. Appreciate you guys very much. Take care. Have a good one. Christ is King. Appreciate you all. See you back on Monday, 6 p.m. And we should have more information about the upcoming guest later on. Peace out, y'all.